Hold up. Yeah.
Hey everybody, just wanted to get a quick video in before I go ahead and start my weekend. Been pretty busy today. Today's the first Saturday of the new hours for my stores. Dillsburg and Harrisburg both stayed open till 5 today. Prior to this, they had closed on Saturdays at 2 o'clock. Quick Change had a really good day. They both did business during the new hours, which is good because it means I did a decent job of getting the word out that there was new hours. I did it mostly through Facebook advertising. I did like $20, $25 campaigns each leading up to the new hours. So there's really not a better way to get information out other than Facebook ads. It's the most direct way. You can put a billboard up and you don't know if anyone's actually looking at it, but with Facebook ads, especially targeted ads, it's being put in front of people's faces. Especially if those people are already customers of yours, and that's kind of the demographic I was trying to hit anyway, is to get the people who I already know. And because of the way Facebook changed their algorithm, organic reach is really low right now, so it's possible that just posting it on the Facebook page will go just over the heads of a lot of people. So besides the new hours, that's really the only thing that happened today. I still haven't done my invoices, which is not a surprise at all. We are now on day 7 of the new month, and I haven't finished my invoices. And fix the lighting. Other than that, really didn't do too much work today. Not as much as I should. I did work on some of the websites a little bit, just because it's still fun. Even though with Facebook now, there's really the organic website's not as huge. SEO is not as huge. Google AdSense is not as huge, so it's not a major part of the business. It still can't be neglected. So I did update all of the websites and try to get those looking good, looking nice. One thing I did want to talk about a little bit, because I saw it in the news and it's very interesting to me, is Macy's and Sears and Kmart are closing a bunch of locations. I don't want to call myself not Nostradamus for predicting this, but I knew that the Macy's and Sears were in trouble, especially Sears, because I spend about an hour a day looking for businesses to buy. Because I'm always looking for an opportunity to pick up a business with for very little cost, or no cost at all. That's kind of like the thesis that I have, is that there's a lot of opportunity out there to get businesses for no money. I've done it a few times now, and I would like to expand my business footprint. So I go on certain websites. I talk a lot about this in my book, the nitty-gritty details about how I do this, but I spend about an hour every single day just looking to see what the websites are for sale, and if any are a potential pick that could be a situation where the owner might be giving it up for free. So I saw a lot of retail Sears popping up over the past probably 12 months. And they were popping up for really cheap. They were pretty much asset purchase sales. And it was across the country. It was from Maine to California. There were Sears popping up for sales. You could have owned a Sears for 15 grand. And I can only imagine the people who probably actually took the bait on this, because they thought they were getting a super well-renowned business for only 12, 15 grand. And God knows what kind of leases were signed, because of the type of buildings that are required to have a Sears retail store. And I'm not talking about the Sears that are in shopping malls. That's a different type of Sears. That's like the corporate offices. Those are the ones that are announcing that they're closing right now. But you can be rest assured that those retail Sears that have been on the market are, There's a few in Maryland for sale right now, and they're for sale for like 10, 15, 20 grand, which is not a lot of money to purchase an existing business. Um, but I can't imagine that they're going to be viable. Um, Macy's is in trouble. Kmart is in trouble. It's, all the big retail stores are really in trouble, mostly because of the Amazons and all the disrupting online e-commerce business that has been kind of chipping away over the last 26 years at these big brick and mortars with the big overhead. And really, I mean, it's pure capitalism at its finest. Is the people who will make it through are going to be the ones that did something to figure it out and figured out the formula to keep their big stores open. And it's interesting because Amazon's going the reverse way. They're going to be opening their first brick and mortar retail stores pretty soon. So that being said, I did want to talk about one actual concrete piece of strategy for finding a business that's for sale that you could get for no money up front. And the strategy I'm talking about is called an assume lease purchase. So it's an assume lease purchase is pretty much what it sounds like. You assume the lease of the business and you take on the liabilities. So reasons for this are there's usually a handful of reasons why someone would be offering an assume lease. Usually it's their health, which is a difficult one to verify. They're retiring, which again is difficult to verify. When I first got Quick Change in Harrisburg, I was told that the owner was retiring. That wasn't the case. It's a huge red flag if they say they're retiring, but they're not retiring. And that's why it's important to get the books on any business that you think you're going to purchase. And then obviously another reason is the business is going down the tubes. And at that point, if you do get the books on that business and it is going down the tubes, you might want to reconsider it. Or if you have the chops and you think, you can build a better mousetrap, go ahead and sign the lease and assume the liabilities. Just make sure you know exactly the full extent of what you're getting into, because with an assumed lease, typically you're signing on to take, depending on the actual structure of the business, you're going to be taking on that entity. Whereas the way that I've done all my business purchases, I have a C Corp. My C Corp purchases the assets of whatever the business is, and then we write new contracts for everything. So it's a new lease, it's new utilities, it's new water bill, all under the Capithanasis Group Inc., not whatever the previous business was. That gets you off the hook for a lot of problems. But with an assumed lease, sometimes that's not the case. Now, if that is the case, that's even better, because if you're signing a new lease, like if the business owner works something out with their landlord and they say, hey, if I get someone in here, can you let me off? Those do pop up. They're not as common, but with an assumed lease, an assumed lease is probably the easiest way to slide into a business without any kind of actual cash infusion whatsoever. You can go straight off whatever the cash flow is, if there is any, obviously. The types of businesses I see do assume lease: barbershops, salons. I've seen barbershop salons. I've seen, that might. I would have to check. Probably those are the only two I've actually seen advertised. Now, the way to go about finding them is basically Googling assume lease business for sale. Just put in parentheses. If you put in parentheses, assume lease, parentheses, or quotation marks, not parentheses. And then you search business for sale. That way Google only will search when assume and lease are actually together. That's your best bet for finding them. Now, I don't want to go into too much detail because I do have a book coming out that has a lot of these really in-depth details on the different strategies for finding businesses for sale that you can get for no money. But with an assumed lease, I'm really trying to think of other types of businesses I've seen with assumed leases. I saw a children's gym, a children's like gymboree for sale. That was an assumed lease. I saw a cafe once that was for sale. That was an assumed lease. But you know, in these situations, you really gotta hammer out the details, because if they're taking their equipment with them, then you might as well go find your own lease. If they're leaving everything behind, then that's a different story. The vape shop that I bought in Baltimore was kind of an assumed lease. There was a little bit of cash to cover the equipment and everything that was left behind, but it was not nearly as much as what was actually left behind. And so, and that was a situation where the guys had built up a chain of vape shops, and they only did it because it had fantastic margin, and their end goal wasn't to have a chain of vape shops. They wanted to open a bar in downtown Baltimore. So that was something, like, we uncovered that information and it made sense, and it wasn't like, okay, what are we getting ourselves into? We weren't walking into like a free-falling situation. We walked into a pretty decent situation. So that's why you kind of got to do due diligence when it comes to businesses for sale in general. It doesn't matter actually what kind of sale it is. Anytime a business is for sale, you got to do due diligence. You got to figure out why it's for sale. But that's really it for an assumed lease sale. It's one of multiple strategies for finding a business for sale, where you can step in for little money, very little money, or even no money at all. I'm going to start trying to talk about more of these strategies. Obviously, once the book's out, I'll talk about it much more detail, but like leading up to the release of the book, it just wouldn't make sense for me to go into it because a lot of it's in the book, and I really want it to do well. So I don't think at the end of the day, I'm a salesperson, so I do like making money. That's gonna be it for today. If you have any questions about an assumed lease business purchase, social media at Costa Capo across the board, email costa@capogroup.com, or you can hit me up on Facebook anytime. I respond to every single person who asks me any questions. All right, you guys have a good rest of the weekend.
She say that she a wanderlust, but she ain't seen the world so much to do at 21. You feel invincible, so hard to find someone to trust. She's still a daddy's girl, she wanna be an actress and a singer like Selena. And she a movie buff, but she ain't seen Breakfast at Tiffany's or Breakfast Club. That's just before her time, so hard to keep a conversation when your mind's on vacation. You got pretty green eyes, I can see them dollar signs, girl. Oh yeah, I heard that you addicted to them sands now, girl. Go ahead with your sleepy ass. Go ahead. Shawty, give me a reason. You know that I'm leaving. Give me a reason. You know that I'm leaving. I know how to please you, and it's stay in the freezer. It's all that you need, you baby. Perfect. Say she shake it for the Instagram and a Twitter page. On YouTube, she's a makeup artist. Hollywood apartment, she's a bartender and a part-time model. All her friends are verified. Wow, man, that's so cool. Wow, girl, can we hang out? Let's take 1,000 pictures like the hype beast now. People saying that we're goals. That's all.